What's up, y'all? I think this is recording my computer. I hope so. Not the cloud because I ain't got storage. But happy Saturday. We're back and on schedule. Getting through this book called The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Mainley. Or am I tripping? Stanley, duh, with an S. But one, welcome back to another week. We picked up last week on chapters 3 and 4, had a powerful conversation. It was honestly just me and Pat going through time, energy, and money, and then chapter 4 discussing on you aren't what you drive. So this week we are going through chapter 5 and 6. Chapter 5 being economic outpatient care, and then chapter 6 being affirmative action, familia style. It's actually family style, but um, you get you get what I'm you get what I'm throwing. You're catching it and picking up what I'm putting down. That being said, I know that Imani, you're in the middle of work, so if you want to kick us off, so you can share your thoughts here, unless you're busy.
No, I can run to the bathroom. This is actually the perfect. Well, nah, maybe. Yes, no. I want to, but I got to seat these people in a couple minutes. God damn it. Let me
No,
try to
no,
seat them right now.
no,
Just
you're
like chit
good.
chat.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
okay.
good. But yeah, so um. Honestly, this book has been extremely powerful so far, especially because it's identified a lot of habits and practices that we've done correctly, things that we need to implement as well, between PA dubs and UA dubs, um, and being more mindful of how those that are millionaires and never really even started out that way, just had a consistency in how they utilize their time, energy, and money, and then were intentional enough to create an investment plan and follow that actual plan, regardless of what they had going on, to have a result yielded after a long-term consistent effort. So that's honestly where we get into today with chapters 5 and 6. Shall I kick us off? Unless Patrick, you would love to. It's up to you, bro.
What we saying, bro?
We're gonna start with chapter 5 and 6. Um,
Yeah,
if you want to kick us off, or I can, whatever works.
of course, of course, of course, of course. You don't need to
Yeah.
yell at me though.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about how last week really got us in understanding how like the different habits and practices that we either put into place or need to put in place in order to be in alignment with the activity and over consistent activity over a period of time that yields a result, that allows us to be in that type of framework and kind of like tax bracket as well. But would you like to start or should I?
Yeah, I'll start. All right, chapter 5. Hold on, what's that? Sorry. Where's my, am I going crazy? My coffee I just made. Sorry, one sec, bro. Yes, oh, found it. Um, chapter 5. What really hit me in chapter 5 and 6 is that Stanley isn't really talking about not really talking about money anymore. Um he's talking more about people. He's talking about, what happens to people when money comes into the picture and how we like raise our children, how we lead, and ultimately like what we're actually leaving behind.
Yeah.
Um for chapter 5, it's based on my notes I got here. Where'd they go? Here they are. Um, for chapter five, economic outpatient care really changed me because it exposed something that I think a lot of people don't want to admit sometimes, which is like sometimes the help we give people isn't actually helping them, if that makes sense. Like Stanley talks about different about like affluent parents continuing to like financially support their their children, their adult children, you know what I mean? Giving them money, paying expenses, helping them buy things, subsidizing their lifestyle. And obviously, most of that comes from love because like even my mom still hugs me, you know. Um, and a parent wants their child to have more than they had, and they want to remove some of that struggle. But the research in the book shows something really interesting, which is receiving financial gift doesn't necessarily make those children wealthier. And some of the groups Stanley had studied, yeah, and some of the groups that Stanley had studied, the the recipients of those gifts actually had lower net worth than the people who didn't receive them. And that kind of made me stop and think, because it made me ask myself, like, what's the difference between giving someone an advantage versus
Mm.
making someone dependent?
Yeah, that's good, bro. Ooh, that's a good point.
And
I like that.
and those are like obviously two completely different things, because you can give somebody money and change their circumstances without changing their character. You know what I mean? You can remove the struggle. What are you looking for? I had. Oh yeah, give me one. We can remove um you can remove struggle without removing the weakness, if that makes sense. You can make someone's life easier without making them stronger. And that really hits me, at least as a father, you know what I mean? Because I look at my family and I think about the kind of life I want to create for my children. And of course, I want them to have more than I had, right? And I want them to have opportunities. I want them to have security. Um, and I want them to know that they're loved and protected. You know what I mean? But I don't want to raise children who believe the world owes them comfort because their father worked hard.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I don't want them to inherit entitlement. I don't want them to inherit capacity. I don't want them to know how to, or not that I don't want to, I want them to know how to work, how to think, how to sacrifice, how to, how to lose and get back up, how to fail, how to create something from nothing, how to take responsibility, um, when like nobody's coming to save them. You know what I mean? And because eventually I'm not gonna be able to fix everything for them. Just like eventually my mom can't fix everything for me.
Mhm.
And I've already seen that happen. You know what I mean? And that's one of the hardest truths about being a parent, I feel like, is your job isn't to make sure your children never experience hardship. Your job is to prepare them to walk through hardship without losing themselves as a person. And that's where I kind of connected.
Well,
That's where I connected this chapter directly to like leadership. Like I don't want to be the leader who always rescues people, right? If every time somebody on my team were to struggle, I jump in and solve it. I jump in and sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, every single time someone in my team struggles, like, and I jump in to solve their problem, I may get the immediate result, but like I've done nothing to develop that person. You know what I mean? What I've done is I've created dependence, and a real leader doesn't just produce results. You know what I mean? A real leader produces people who can produce results, and that's something that I've definitely learned. Um, just from the mentorship that I received, when doing network marketing. That's a completely different level of leadership. Like I'd rather build somebody than fund somebody. You know what I mean? I'd rather teach somebody how to um, create opportunity than constantly getting constantly hand them opportunities. Rather have somebody struggle through learning something and becoming dangerous on the other side than make their life easy and keep them dependent on me. You know what I mean? So that's why I got from like chapter five. And chapter six kind of took that even further. Hold on, my mom wants to say something about chapter five. Sorry.
So as you all like continue with your business, the problem that you all are gonna run into is something what you were already talking about is as these young people are coming up, you all are getting older and these young people are with entering your into the workforce, into your business, and that is something that y'all are going to have to really be strong in because I can tell you right now that the kids that I'm teaching, the kids that I have been teaching for the past 10 years, don't like to struggle. They do like to be handed, and every single time they enter my classroom, I have to reteach them. Like I'm not gonna bottle feed you. That's not how I raise my kids.
Mhm.
Not how I'm gonna raise in here. So when I hear you talking about that, um, that it is very hard as a parent. And granted, you're not a parent to your, the people you're mentoring, but you're kind of like in a parent type role, right?
Yeah, it's
And
mentorship.
it's hard. It's
Yeah.
right. It's hard to see them struggle, but there is beauty in the struggle because that is when you grow. When you struggle through it. I mean, I can say that. I remember Patrick being really little. He was 2 years old, spilling something, and me telling him, "Go get the dustpan. You pick it up." Like, and it's not that I didn't want to do it for him, not that I was being tough on him, but I wanted him to learn to do.
Hey, is there, can I go right now?
No,
No,
my mom's talking.
Patrick's mama was talking. Can you hear
Oh,
it?
my bad. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So as you all continue on, just remember that you're gonna run into this again as you all get more people on your team, that those adults are those kind of adults that you're gonna have to teach
Yeah.
do on your own. You know what I
Amen.
mean?
Yeah. No, and I agree
You said yes.
wholeheartedly. I've been in mentorship now going on, I would say in the position where I'm at to actively positively influence and guide people the last 7 to 8 years. And in that, there comes a time where you've got to like literally understand that you can offer encouragement, you can offer words of wisdom and guidance, but you literally can't do it for them. They have to be willing to actually lean into the uncomfortability and figure it out. And I like what you had said as well, Pat, in terms of, right, where's that line where you are giving your children an advantage or whether or not you're crippling them because you're giving them the gifts that produce consumption over a growth. You know what I'm saying? And that growth comes with a willingness to work hard and invest and make it happen. And I think your mom made a great point. It's just because we live in a society where psychology is being programmed to have this instant gratification or this ease of receiving rather than working for and earning that it's I think it's creating a larger gap of an outlier, right? I've seen it, especially amongst the younger generation, like my sisters. Like, there's no in between nowadays. It's like you're either going and getting it, or You're on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Uh,
It's actually wild. But I think that's like it's important because when you notice people on the opposite side of the spectrum, you can like speak to that. You just can't help them beyond what you're supposed to because that
yeah,
requires them to figure out a relationship with God, in my opinion. And then in that
yeah,
regard, figure out how to execute that faith to produce the actual practical habits that are going to yield a different outcome than what they're currently seeing. Most people aren't going to be, shoot, you know what I'm saying? Even in not only our generation, but like my mom's generation, your mother's generation, there are people that are unwilling to change too, you know? But I think it's
uh,
becoming more like black and white in terms of who's actually making efforts and actions towards growing. And you can speak and hold um
wait.
yeah, yeah, and hold a mirror in people's face more
Yeah,
intentionally. That's why I'm excited.
yeah,
I think we need to throw back in the Roto, how to win friends and influence people, because like the way we effectively communicate and how we can showcase things by asking better questions to people forces people to think, but also forces individuals
right.
to be intentional about their thought processes. But no, thanks for sharing, Mama. That was a great point. I definitely been seeing that, and
Yeah,
it's been cool to learn how to operate amongst that. But I think you got to be the example, right? And I think that's what the book is trying to say. Like, yo, if you're gonna get to the millionaires type of status, like know what these people who are there are doing and do those things. Know what people who aren't there are doing and stay away from those things and adjust how you're currently at accordingly. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
absolutely.
My fault.
No, you're good. And yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mom. But yeah, chapter six, I feel, took that whole what I just said even further. Um, Stanley talks about parents, about how parents give more financial assistance to children who are less financially productive. Um, like while the children who are already disciplined, successful, and independent, they those type of children receive less because they don't quote unquote need the help. You know what I mean? And I kept coming back to one question is what behavior are we rewarding nowadays? Because whatever you consistently reward, that's what you reinforce, right? If you reward dependency, you're gonna create dependency, right? If you reward entitlement, you're gonna create entitlement, right? But if you reward like discipline, ownership, initiative, responsibility, like productivity, like those things, you're gonna create people who become
Mhm.
stronger. Um, and I feel like that applies to a family, a business, a team. It applies to leadership. It even applies to yourself. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, like we need to, sometimes like the person we need to stop rescuing is ourselves. Like sometimes we want the outcome without wanting the process, and that makes us worthy of like that. The process is what makes us worthy of the outcome in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that's where these chapters got personal for me, um, because I've been thinking a lot more about what it actually means to build something that lasts. It's easy to say you want generational wealth. Everyone says that all the live long day. Everybody likes the idea of leaving money behind. But the older I get, the more I realize that generational wealth isn't just about what you leave your family. It's not about not just solely about the dollars you leave for your family, right? It's about who your family becomes because of what you built. Does that make sense? And that's like, to me, that's a much heavier responsibility because I don't just want my children to look at what their father accumulated or what their mom accumulated, right? Or what their lovey accumulated. I want them to understand the whole discipline behind it, the sacrifice behind it, right? The years where I had to keep going when things weren't going the way that I wanted. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
decisions where I had to choose the long-term outcome over the short-term gratification. I want them to understand that the things worth having usually require you to become somebody different before you're allowed to have those things. You know what I mean? And that to me is the real lesson here in these chapters. Understanding that the things that are worth having require you to become a different person that you already are so that you can have those, so that we can have those things. And like don't just transfer wealth, like transfer wisdom. Like knowledge is also generational wealth.
Yeah, I preach that so consistently. It's honestly driven a lot of my life to this point. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to say that all the time in my appointments whenever I was doing life insurance. You know what I mean? Like the knowledge that I'm about to share with you, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, this is stuff that you can pass down to your children, right? Just about things about financial literacy. Like wisdom is also generational wealth. Like don't just give your children a house. Teach them how to build a house. Don't just give them money, teach them how to create value. You know what I mean? Like don't just protect them from every single difficult situation. Teach them how to stand when life gets difficult, right? Because if I leave my children money, but don't leave them the character to manage it, then I haven't created no generational wealth. You know what I mean? I've created generational opportunity with no guarantee that they'll know what to do with it. Right? But if I can build the money and build the people that like that's a whole different ballgame. Now I created something that can multiply, and that's what really changed my perspective on legacy. Because I used to think legacy was what you leave behind. And now I think legacy is who you leave behind because the money can be spent, house can be sold,
The bar.
the business can fail,
That's a
bank
bar.
account can hit zero. But if you've like built discipline into your children, if you've built confidence into them, if you taught them ownership, you know, staying aligned with their faith, work ethic, financial intelligence, the ability to create something from nothing, then even if everything does get taken away, if they fall into the narrative of Job, right? They can still rebuild. And to me, that's wealth. You know what I mean? Because that's why adversity really matters. Not because I want like people I love to suffer, but because I understand now that some of the greatest things that we develop in life are usually developed when we're forced to become someone stronger. And that's uncomfortable as a parent because your first instinct is to protect your children from everything. But sometimes love isn't removing the mountain. Sometimes love is teaching them how to climb it. And I think that's part of leadership too. Like a weak leader is going to create followers who need him, who rely on him. You know, obviously, like we rely on leaders to an extent, right? But I feel like a strong leader creates leaders who eventually can stand beside him. You know what I mean? As opposed to following them around like a puppy. And that's the kind of man that I want to become because I don't want people around me to be successful because they had access to me. I want them to be successful because being around me made them better. I want my family to become stronger because I was there. I want my team to be stronger because I led them. I want my children to be stronger because they watched me build. They watched me go through trials and tribulations. And ultimately, that's where these chapters took me. You know, they made me really realize that my greatest responsibility isn't just to build something that's impressive. You know what I mean? Like it's to build something strong enough to survive me. And I don't want my children to inherit my comfort. I don't want them to inherit my like, or I want them to inherit my discipline. I don't want them to simply know what I accumulated. I want them to understand what it took to actually accumulate something like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to leave them in a life where everything has already been done for them, which I feel like that is where we're entering. Like kind of like piggybacking off what my mom said. Like I feel like this younger generation is stupid, so to speak. You know what I mean? Not trying to be rude, but they're becoming very dependent. They want things easy to them. Um, and that kind of scares me. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to leave my kids a blueprint for how to build, sacrifice, lead, fall, get back up, create wealth, and to protect it. You know what I mean? Most importantly, how to become the kind of person who can carry that. Because an inheritance can be spent. You know what I mean? But a blueprint, if you leave behind a blueprint, that can be duplicated. You know what I mean? And one thing I've learned in network marketing is like if you can build a system that's duplicatable,
Yeah.
that's everything.
Everything,
And
bro.
that's the difference
The system replaces you. Amen. Yeah.
and that's the difference between leaving an inheritance and leaving a legacy. You know what I mean? So all in all, I feel like my I feel like ultimately that's what these chapters really made me realize, right? My greatest responsibility isn't to make life easy for the people I love, is to make sure that they're prepared for life when I'm not there to make it easy. I don't want to build a family that depends on what I leave behind. You know what I mean? Because if I leave my children $1 million and they don't have the character to manage it, I've only just transferred money.
Yeah.
If I leave them $1 million and the discipline, the principles, the work ethic, the financial intelligence,
Yeah.
and just the courage overall to create another million. You know what I mean? What? Create another million, then I've really transferred something that's far more valuable. I've transferred a blueprint, and that's the difference between leaving and like I said, leaving an inheritance and leaving a legacy. Um, so like when I think about generational wealth now, I don't just see money. I see people. I see the kind of man I become, the kind of leader, the kind of father that I become. And I think that's the real challenge Stanley really puts in front of all of us, right? Is don't spend your life building something your children are too weak to carry.
Mm-hmm.
Build the money, build the character, build the discipline, the people, because the ultimate measure of what I built won't be what my family receives when I'm gone. It'll be what they're capable of building because I was here. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
TikTok. No, that's powerful, bro. And I couldn't agree more in terms of what's most important of passing down. You know what I'm saying? The past little over 7 months, I've been helping people protect their assets and their wealth to develop generational sustaining legacy through trust structures and estate planning. And in
Right.
and in doing that, man, I've learned a lot in terms of, not just the practicality and the actual specifics of how that's done, but also how a lot of people who get it done don't even know what's happening, right? Or if they establish it, they definitely, if they don't understand what's happening, aren't able to pass down the knowledge and the wisdom to their children that they set it up for. And what I've seen is a lot of times people drop the ball. Like they pass the bag and the bag gets fumbled. It's actually crazy. And that's
Humble.
something that I recommend that people have more of on the forefront of their minds is like, okay, what am I not only building, but what am I passing down in terms of how it'll be managed and handled, stewarded once it's passed to my family and my kids. And I think that's the most important part. And it's honestly why I feel like God has put it on my heart very recently to be more so focused and holding an emphasis on keeping him in the forefront and ensuring people understand that everything that we have, everything we accumulate comes and goes. There are things that are more valuable than just money. But before I share my point of view on the chapters, I don't know if Amani's available. It looks like she's working. She might not be. I could write.
Amani,
Oh, crazy faith.
Amani,
Oh, crazy faith. Crazy
Amani,
faith.
Amani, yeah.
I think she is busy, so I'm gonna take the mic. Um, so for me, I think the biggest thing that these two chapters kind of stood out in my mind, can be honestly defined by one sentence, and it's just begin with the end in mind, right? Like if you understand what the end goal is and where you're headed, you can work towards that intentionally. And I really like the just like the main concepts of these two chapters because it's in alignment with everything that I've put towards the sweat equity, the tears, the sacrifices, the failures, the lessons that have been even why I've decided to go through it when majority of my family has never even taken a chance or attempted. Like it's actually crazy. Like I really see how my people, especially around me and the social economic environment and the community, most people are just so riddled by fear, worry, anxiety that there's no real chance of faith being implemented or consistently drawn into. And I'm grateful. I'm genuinely grateful because everything that these chapters were talking about is why I even make the attempt. You know, I tell this to a lot of people, but I've definitely told you, Pat, and Imani. You know, I've been grinding for my kids since middle school. I don't even know what that looked like, but I knew my children are gonna deserve way more than what I got to experience, and I want them to know how to live life abundantly, right? And one of the things I'll start with chapter 6. One of the things I wrote, right, is wealth is more significant than money. What would your children understand and define wealth as? Like if somebody were to communicate with your child based on the lifestyle you provided, the wisdom you passed down, the structure and the abilities that you were able to give them, what would they actively define wealth as, and how would they understand that wealth? Like, first off, right, I understand it's a lot bigger than you, it's bigger than me. So, like, it requires us, especially as men. I don't know if Imani can hear us, right? But as men, like, we've got to put our pride aside and our ego aside and recognize that what we're building is not just for recognition, reputation. It's not just for an accomplishment and to carry out our purpose, although that is a driving force of what we do. But it needs to be more so about the inheritance that we leave down from generation to generation. And when the Bible talks about this, like I used to always think it was talking about like, oh, we've got to build this bag up and we've got to pass down an inheritance, right? But what I understood God to actually be speaking about when he told the Israelite people to leave an inheritance for your children's children, he's talking about a spiritual inheritance, right? And like just starting towards the end of chapter 6, one of the principles that they go through in terms of rules for affluent parents and productive children. So essentially, to make sure that you are wealthy and wisdom through financial literacy and financial independence because of your management of the resources and wealth that you've built, as well as creating and building up children that are productive rather than lazy or entitled in that process. the last point that they make out of the 10 rules was telling your children that there are a lot of things more valuable than money, right? And he listed good health, longevity, happiness, a loving family, self-reliance, fine friends. If you have 5 of those, you're a rich man. Reputation, respect, integrity, honesty, and a history of achievements. Money is icing on the cake of life. You don't ever have to cheat or steal. You don't have to break the law or cheat on your taxes. It's easier to make money honestly than dishonestly in this country. You will never exist in business if you rip people off. Life is the long run, and you can't hide from adversity. You can't hide your children from life's up and downs. The ones who achieve do so by experiencing and conquering obstacles, even from their childhood days. Those that keep their children sheltered is due to a perspective of fear, of worry, and a feeling of dependency rather than a capability to overcome. And like, I don't know what Bible y'all be reading, but the one that I read tells me that nothing formed against me will prosper, and that we have a spirit not of fear or timidity or cowardice, but of strength, of encouragement, of authority and power. Like, I think those are the reasons why, right? The wealthy is a lot more than just your financial bank account. I also like the rules, right? Never tell your children their parents are wealthy, right? Adult children of UAWs. Do you remember what UAWs are, Pat? Under accumulators of wealth, right?
Yes.
Adult children of under accumulators of wealth are more likely to earn higher incomes than accumulate wealth, that actually accumulate the wealth. What are we talking about, right? At the beginning of the book, one of the biggest statistics that stood out to me is that 80% of millionaires never came from money. And this is in the 90s, right? So like, if we know this to be true, there's a reward attached to an ability to go and grind. That doesn't mean that the actual benefit to what you do is what you get. I think what you hit on is more important. It's the person you become and the people that you help them become along the way that yields the result. And I think this is why, like, yes, God will deliver it for us and we're supposed to pray for it. But this is also why he tells us, like, I will bless your hands with the work that you do. Like, you can't just sit here and not do nothing. We got to put in energy, effort, and sweat equity to see a result be put into place. And I think that's important, right? Because statistically, and these are just the numbers, adult children of underaccumulate wealth builders were more likely to earn higher incomes than to accumulate wealth. It says adult UAWs tend to be the product of parents who lived in ways they thought appropriate for wealthy people to act. And essentially the rule is never tell children that their parents are wealthy. A PAW, somebody that actually accumulates wealth, said, I never knew my dad was wealthy until I became the executor of his estate. He never looked like it. Ain't that crazy? Like, your child never knows that you're really wealthy like that, but they live an abundant lifestyle, and you were able to embody and give them the mind frame, the consistency, and the skill sets to create their own lifestyle. Number two, right? No matter how wealthy you are, teach your children discipline and frugality, right? Characterized by discipline and frugality is where the actual fruit allows the kids to be trained to take responsibility for their actions. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of adult children out here that refuse to take responsibility of their actions. My children will be different. Number three, assure that your children won't realize you're affluent until after they have established a mature, disciplined, and adult lifestyle. The doctor from chapter 3, whenever they went into frugality, frugal, said this, I have set up trusts for my children, but my plan will not distribute money to my children until they are 40 years of age. What? Like this is actually wild. Like how many people would give their children bread? 25, 30, 35. He said 40 years or older. He said, because in this way, my money will have little effect on the way of life at that age. They will have already adapted their own lifestyle. One, you give the child a chance to create something on their own accord with God. Am I still there? Am I still here? Okay, okay, I'm still here. But you give
Yep.
the child a chance to
Yep.
create something that is uniquely their own with God, and then you allow them to allow that lifestyle to yield discipline and frugality, right? So I love that. For minimize discussions of the items that each child and grandchild will inherit or receive as gifts. False promises often lead to discord and conflicts. I've seen this kind of crazy too. Family feuds are a real thing. So if you plan your estate accordingly and you have things in tune with proper trust structures and effective stipulations that are honored in terms of your estate, then you can have more peace amongst the family so that when you pass, you give them more of a peace of mind rather than a conflict. You give them a gift because you structured something, but they can celebrate it because you also, as you were talking about, bro, you gave them wisdom to understand what they're receiving, not just giving them the wealth or the money or the stocks or the assets where 2 generations removed, it's gone, right? I don't know about you, but the tree that I'm planting and that I'm nurturing and caring for, I might not benefit from the shade it produces, and I'm okay with that. But one thing that I will ensure before I'm gone is that the knowledge is passed down so that the shade continues to provide benefits to my family for generations to come, not just 1 or 2 removed, where the tree gets uplifted and uprooted, right? Or it's not cared for, taken care of in terms of being trimmed away and multiplied into new trees if just because generations down the line, that same mindset wasn't passed down. One thing that this taught me, right, is essentially like, why is it that those that come from no wealth create wealth and those that have the wealth but are crippled end up squandering it, right? And there's one thing that I used to say back in when I first started trading in financial literacy, and I would tell this in every exposure. But here's one thing I recognize, right? Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times, and easy times create weak men. So there's a cyclical pattern that happens amongst family generations. So if it changes with us, how do we change the cycle? And I fervently believe it's not knowledge, it's applied knowledge, which is wisdom, right? If they understand what to do with what you build and what they receive, then it won't just be easy times because adversity is inevitable, but it'll be an obstacle or a challenge that is viewed from a different perspective, right? If you raise up your children in the faith, they understand that their circumstances aren't based upon their finances. It's based upon their positioning with God. If you raise your children upon the faith, they understand that their identity isn't in their job or in their occupation. Their identity is based in Jesus Christ and the blood that was shed. If you raise your children in the faith, they understand that true wealth isn't in finances or things of this world. It's in relationships, it's in health, it's in effective communication, reputation, integrity, righteousness. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, like, it's crazy how it's taken me 10 years to have a revelation like that. But I've always tell people, I don't know why I'm so close to the wealth that I've always been promised. And I feel like God has always just been trying to showcase to me, you're already wealthy. You know what I'm saying? You're already there. Everything else will follow because it's an icing on top. But even if I don't give it to you, you've built up treasures in the eternal. Like you have treasures in heaven. And that's what honestly matters most. So as I fight to create a different dynamic and situation and a lifestyle for my children, my family, my community that I know will come to pass, within God's will, then I can have a level of detachment away from what is happening or what isn't happening, because I know that I've built up riches and wealth in heaven, but I've also became wealthy because I'm a better man for the things that I've gone through, right? And that's one of the biggest things that I was like really being reminded of, is that like you you can stay intentional and ensure that, I don't know, I feel like these two chapters were like some of the most important things that we can read in the book, because none of it matters if you do the wealth principles correctly and you accumulate millions of billions of dollars and you diversify your asset portfolio if you're not building your children, if you're not building the foundation, and if you're not carrying out what we're called to do, which is build the kingdom. Like, I don't care about anything else. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's what he's reminding us about, is that affirmative action, family style, is ensuring that your children understand that it's not about what it is you're receiving, it's about how you live your life. Like, what are you doing on a consistent daily basis, right? In terms of trading, like, how much time are you spending trading? How much time are you spending with your family? How much time are you spending executing your trading plan? And how much time are you executing a wealth regimen and workout plan? Like, it's not just about what you're doing, it's about the life that you live. Um, I thought this was interesting. Number 6, stay out of your adult children's family matters. I don't know. I just always felt like we're supposed to be there for help. I think what this helped me recognize is, like, especially as I step into a wealthy parent role, if your children are adults and they've got to figure it out, you've got to let them figure it out and only help if they ask for it. Right? Hey, help's there, and I love you. You can do this, but that's your marriage. You're gonna have to have the conversation, right? Those are your children. You're gonna have to lean in and allow your children to know that you love them and that you're there for them, right? That's your financial hardship. Hey, that's your criminal negligence. You're gonna have to carry out the consequences of your actions and have retribution so that you can build trust again. Like, there are certain things that you can no longer do as a parent of an adult. And it's crazy, bro, because I'm seeing my mom go through this, like something wild, especially because now all of her children are 18 and up, 3 of which have children and are building their own families, one of which is going through the ringer in terms of creating lifestyle differently. And in that, I've seen my mom just like, she's like, all I can do is like pray for you guys and be here if you need it. But like, those are the things that you're gonna have to lean into and figure out. I can't do that for you. And I was like, as I read this, it made me think of my mom. I'm like, Mom, you're a wealthy girl. You gotta figure this out. And understand that 'cause sometimes she thinks she's not, just based on the financial situations, but just the way that she handles family's affairs is really good. Don't try to compete with your children. Pops, if you ever catch us recording, it's on YouTube and it's public. I hope you read this book one day. I love you so much, and I feel like sometimes you want to compete with me, and I don't understand that. But I feel like we can do so much more together if we put our minds on terms of what we can do. It says, never boast about how much money you have accumulated. This sends a confusing message. To many successful, achievement-oriented children of the affluent, accumulating money is not the subordinate goal. Instead, they want to be well-educated, to be respected by their peers, and to occupy a high-status position. For many of those sons and daughters, the variations in income and wealth among occupations are much less important than they are for their parents. Fire. It says the same millionaire never wanted any of his children to be entrepreneurs, and in reality, most of the children of the affluent never do become business owners. Money is second or third on their list to the goals and achievements. So just be mindful of that. Like, there's no need to compete or boast. Like, be there and support. Always remember that your children are individuals. They differ from each other in motivation and achievement. Try as you may via economic outpatient care, inequalities will exist. So instead of causing discord, allow them to be like in their strengths. And then number 9, emphasize your children's achievements, no matter how small, not their or your symbols of success. This is I get reminded of this by Earl Nightingale all the time. I listen to it once a week, or I haven't this past couple weeks, so I need to get back on it. But I have listened to it at least on average once a week, called The Stranger's Secret. And success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, right? And if that's the definition, then that changes from person to person, from situation to situation, from calling to calling. So if you can identify that your definition of success might be different from another's, then you can move with more intentionality and being a light of encouragement and of congratulations and collaboration. And I think your children are watching everything. You know what I'm saying? They know all of it, not just some of it. And if you don't believe me, people on the recording or people that are on the call, I'm like, bro, just think back to when you were kids and how much you took in, what you saw, what has stuck with you, what has formed and influenced you from when the time that you were there, and allow yourself to know that like you can be that example that they look at in terms of encouraging, congratulating, and celebrating other people. Right? There's so many people that are so caught up in their own achievements that they don't even take care of other individuals or acknowledge that they're capable, that the people around them can help produce a multiplier exponential effect because you've got a community of people celebrating, loving on, helping, encouraging, and congratulating one another. And your kids will know that, which is why I've always said one of my main goals and visions in my life is to have a positive, faith-driven, encouraging environment where my children can walk firmly upon, but have examples and situations around them that show empowerment, that show positivity, that show the healthy lifestyles that allow them to become the versions of themselves that God always intended. That's something I never had. That's something I had to look for, and I've been working on creating. So shout out my people on this call. They are helping do that. Okay, success leaves clues. Amen. I guess chapter 5, because I really just stuck on chapter 6 for the most of what I talked about. I want to make sure I touched on everything from chapter 6 that I wanted to. I wrote down your question, bro, though, that you wrote at the top of the chapter. Essentially, what action are you rewarding nowadays? Right. And I think that, like, especially if you're already a parent or you intend to have children, these chapters are extremely important so that you can understand, hey, I can encourage and give a advantage to my children, but I don't have to cripple my children. I think one thing that I highlighted from the jump is from chapter 5 is that the costs to provide outpatient care will also increase substantially in the future. So if you set a trend of providing care through your finances to your children, that's only going to increase in what that cost is. So you're going to spend a lot of energy, time, effort, and resources helping your children get through problems and situations that you have to give them the opportunity to learn from and grow in. He said the real problem is not with the public schools. It's with families in a situation of economic dependency. I was like, that's a bar. That's a bar. Because, like, technically, bro, I've known a lot of wealthy people that went to public school. You don't have to go to a private institution to be wealthy. I think, again, it does come down to the type of principles that are applied to you and the vision that God puts you in your heart and whether or not you're willing to listen to that and then what your parents do alongside of that. It says typically adults who sit around waiting for the next dose of economic outpatient care typically are not very productive. Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'll definitely have some funds put aside to help my children go to college, but you ain't getting none of that. How many scholarships can you receive? And I can see about giving you a loan. And I really want my children to know what it looks like, right? Because I'd much rather them take a loan from a family's funding than a bank, right? And if a higher education
Yep.
aspect is something that you want to do and you don't have the financial backing of a family bank system, aka UILs or or brokerage
You
accounts
can
that
borrow from an
you can
annuity.
borrow against, then you're gonna have to go find the money somewhere. So go bust your butt and get scholarships. What'd you say? What'd you say?
Said XRP, the
XRP.
XRP.
Yeah. And, that'll be
But
something that they can look, I can lend out against as well. But that's what I'm saying. Like I want them to understand that like you got to work for that. You're not gonna be entitled to school. I think I definitely told you about this, but there's this guy on Shark Tank. He's a bald guy, one of the judges at the investors, and he spoke on how his son was just not being productive. He was being really lazy and felt everything was entitled to him. So he set up his trust distribution to not receive anything. And by the time he was 18, old boy was tripping out. And he was like, "No, we're not going to do that. And you're not going to receive this." And he forced him to be put in a situation where he had to learn, figure out a solution, and get to work. The son eventually ended up getting to work, started his own businesses, and is doing really well. But it took him putting in a position when he recognized that he was getting the entitlement. That's what these chapters reminded me of Old Boy Son. Like you can literally raise somebody that is hindered by the wealth you create or empowered by it. There are many forms of economic outpatient care. Some are very strong positive influence on the productivity of the recipients. So that reminded me, like you can give economic outpatient care, but just be careful of what type and what the effect is, right? He said this could be subsidizing your children's education, earn marking gifts so that they can start enhancing a business. Many self-made millionaires and entrepreneurs know this intuitively. Um, and then conversely, the effect of cash gifts that are knowingly earned marked for consumption and the propping up of a certain lifestyle, we find that the giving of such gifts is the single most significant factor that explains the lack of productivity among the adult children of the affluent. So they're saying that majority of the kids that come from affluent, wealthy, financially literate parents that are unproductive are due to cash gifts that encourage consumption or a certain lifestyle. Quit playing with me. For your birthday, what experience do you want? You ain't getting money and you're not getting materialistic vibes, right? Experiences, I think, will expand people's mindset and allow them to know that there's a lot more out there than just their local environment. Um, it's so funny. Who's that in the back? Her feet go crazy every time you do that. Is that Avery or Elena?
Slavery.
She's running. She's a runner. She a track star. Okay, bet. Um, okay, so and this is the last thing I'll say on chapter 5. But he compared Mary and Lamar's situation, those that were crippled by the gifts of way too much economic outpatient care, to the sales executive who had and did just the opposite. And it's saying that the sales executive was fully self-sustaining today, whereas Mary and Lamar were economically dependent. And the question was why? And it says because he and his family do not receive economic outpatient care earmarked for consumption. He spends much of his time enhancing his productivity by working harder and investing wisely. Like one, if that's not a clue for us, right? Just work hard, invest wisely, stay disciplined and frugal. Then you can get exactly where you're aiming to go and provide more wealth for your family, your loved ones, and your communities. But furthermore, right, as we set the example and the tone for our adult children so that they are affluent, just as we become affluent, we can know that not giving them economic outpatient care earmarked for consumption and sincerely helping them when they actually need it, then they can also produce the habits of working hard and investing wisely, right? So that they can create their own lifestyle and they can grow actual wealth rather than um trying to like create this facade like we talked about last week, right? That you're something that you're not, or attempting to just get things handed to you when that's not how life works. But yeah, anyways, I had to go in just real quick, because this is literally why I do everything I do. And I'm grateful for the I'm grateful for the reminders, man. And then like I think this sets the framework, right? We get to learn from people that are already there through this book, and we get to choose whether or not we're going to take their wise advice, right, on what they did for their children and what has worked. And then we also get to choose whether or not we stay away from the things that didn't work. Because again, this is all based off studies. Like that's what I really like about this book. It's based off data and a consistency of research with people that are already there. And I think it's crazy because most people probably didn't see these two chapters coming. They're all just trying to think, okay, well, how do I get wealthy? And I think I just want to give honor to the authors, you know what I'm saying, Danko and Stanley, because they're like, hey, y'all, it ain't about the money that you get, and nor is it about the wealth that you accumulate. It's really about, like you said, Pat, what are the type of people that you're helping formulate? What impact are you leaving before you're gone? The money comes as a byproduct because that in itself is extremely valuable. And the last quote I'll say is from, I think her name is Sarah. Oh no, it's Laura. And she said, "It's amazing what you can do when you set your mind to it. You'll be surprised how many sales calls you can make when you have no alternative except to succeed." And I'm not saying that to like, y'all gotta go make more sales call and get better. I'm saying that like if you put your mind to something and you work with God, like you'll do what needs to be done, and you'll get whatever it takes to get to the goals that we're aiming for, because you understand the consistency required and the efforts needed to be put into place for that to work. So, anywho, those are my takes. Imani, are you free now, sis? Are you able, love?
Yeah, barely, barely.
Barely.
Is my background too
No,
loud?
you're
Barely
good.
because okay, cool. I literally don't have much time. Unfortunately, I've been trying to like just hear everything y'all have been saying, but I've heard some gems from the bits and pieces.
Okay. The recording will be
The
up.
only thing I will say, really, huh?
I was just saying the recording will be up too. You got it.
What you say?
The recording will be up too. It's
You
all
know what
good.
I mean? All right, let me see what this guy needs. I don't think he's coming here. He's leaving. Okay, yes. So, the only thing that I will say, due to time constraints, is I thought it was really cool and very interesting how, basically people who start off poor, like from poor disciplined families, um, really find a much easier way, not easier, like it takes a lot of discipline. But I noticed that a lot of the families in chapter 5 were the ones who were able to actually have some substantial wealth and like what they're using their money for, kind of started off poor. Like not in the spirit or the, just financially, but they then end up learning a lot of discipline, and those skills are what help. Oh shit, hold on. Give me a second.
Man, that's a grind. No excuses. I love it. Man, past making me hungry.
Ladies, are y'all looking for the pool? Yes, it's gonna be out the store, and you'll see a walkway to the right. Yes, you can. You're welcome. Yes. Okay. So I thought it was really cool because, there you could believe that only wealthy people and trust fund babies are the ones who are able to make it out in this life. But in reality, that's not the case. A lot of those wealthy kids are spoiled and accustomed to a lifestyle that they can't even afford. without their parents, which I find really sad because it's like the parents are basically giving away their wealth for affluence and status when that really doesn't matter if I can't remember what it's. Hi. Yes, we do. I believe it's about $15 to $16. Did you do you have that paper? Oh no, we all it's only for the one at the hotel. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. And I thought that was really cool because like you don't have to start off. Are you looking for the bathroom? It's gonna be down the bar to the right. Um, like you really don't have to come from a trust fund to make it. And I think that's really important because the people who are taught how to build wealth learn skills much more than a handout. Because
Yeah.
people with a handout are not going to get what they need, which are the tools to succeed and grow the wealth that their parents have built. So I see a lot of people, and I've heard this for so long. Oh yeah, go ahead, enjoy. Yes, gotta come here and eat one day. Mexican, like Mexican American. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, and I train of thought coming back, starting now. So I actually find it to be really cool, and I know I said that a few times because I keep coming back, but I like that. And I like that it's this thing called, hi, are you looking for your friends? Yes, we're gonna go down the bar. You'll see them to the right. You're welcome. And sorry, guys. This is crazy. I'm gonna try not to work on Saturday mornings going forward. Um, yeah, there's this rule where it's something in like 2 or 3 generations. The person who built the wealth, all the wealth is gone. I can't
Yeah.
remember what that's called. And that's kind of like exactly what this book is going through. It's like it's in chapter 5, um, going through how it looks. I mean, this book, the whole book is about looks are deceiving. Yes, there is. They'll be out there soon. Yeah, yeah, you'll see them walking around. You can flag them down. If not, you can always come to the bar. Hi. For two? Ah, I love that.
No, we're the fourth floor.
Oh, you're on the, yeah, we are. Okay. Y'all want to sit at the bar? Y'all look like y'all want to have some fun at the bar. Okay. Yeah, there is. All right. Yeah, you guys too. You want to go outside? You want to have a table outside? You want to check if it's too hot? If it's, you want to check if it's hot, and then if it's too hot, I can see. You can grab a.
Hello?
No, you can check for yourself. If it's too hot for you guys, y'all can. You want to see?
His name is Wishy-Washy. He doesn't like
The bar is right behind me, y'all. Go ahead. Go on to the bar. You got it. Imani. Yes.
Thank you, Lance.
Absolutely, guys. Both sides are open. All right. Well, I'm giving up for the day, y'all. Y'all heard it. So I tried. I'll be locked in next week.
Hey, all good. I
No.
appreciate the little take you got.
Oh,
You know,
shirt sleeves in 3 generations.
here, y'all.
Hold on, what you
But
say for that?
yeah. All right, y'all. Happy Saturday. I'll see you.
All
I'll
right.
see you in. Bye.
Happy Saturday, girl. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank
work.
you.
The recording will be up, so if you want to
All
tune
right.
in, you can catch it later.
Okay, cool. Bye.
But hold on, Pat, what'd you say?
That thing she was talking about is called shirt sleeves and shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It's in the book.
Shirt and sugar.
Shirts, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Basically, the basic. So people that are watching, right? Stanley talks about this in the book, in the context of how wealth can disappear across generations, right? The basic pattern is the first generation obviously is a person who builds the wealth from the ground up, right? Second generation, um, inherit like what somebody inherits it, right, and may preserve some of it, right? And then the third generation often grows up removed from the struggle that created it
Yeah.
and can squander it. And there's a related saying across different cultures, right? Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations. The idea is brutally simple. The grandfather builds it, the father maintains it, the grandson loses it. And that's perfect in connection with chapters 5 and 6. The problem isn't necessarily that the third generation is bad. The it like it's that they inherit inherited it, the results without inheriting the process.
Yeah, the
You know what I
discipline.
mean? The first generation knows to go without.
Yeah.
I mean, the third generation may only know what it means to have. That's why, you know, my earlier point of building people, not just wealth, I feel like is very important. If you give someone the fruit, just play into this. If you give someone, the fruit, but never teach them how to grow the tree, like you were saying, eventually the fruit runs out. That's probably one of the strongest lines you can bring into this. You know what I mean? Like
I agree.
that's and this is where I think the book becomes bigger than money. The real question isn't how, right? Like we said, how much can I leave my children? How will my children become because of what I leave them? And like we said, that's the difference between inheritance and a legacy, right? Inheritance is just something that you receive. A legacy is something that you understand. So going back to my $1 million, scenario, if I give my children $1 million but never teach them discipline, they just have $1 million.
Yeah. We
I
already
teach my
know
children.
money's fleeting, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like
Huh?
money is
Exactly.
fleeting. Yeah. No, that's good. I still
I
don't
don't
understand
know
what you're saying. It sounds
the
like shirt to shirt sleeves.
shirt sleeves.
It sounds like you're saying shirt to shirt
Try
sleeve.
no shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves.
Okay, you have to put that in the chat for me. Maybe it's how you're pronouncing
Pronounce it
it.
shirt.
Hey, dude, I think this one, especially as we come to the last couple of chapters, we're gonna put on the Roto every other year along with Rich Dad Poor Dad because this one's like really significant, bro. I honestly am very upset. I'm reading it. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad about six different shirt. Oh, hold on. I see it in the chat. We see it in the chat. Shirt sleeves
All
to
right.
shirt sleeves. Yeah, that's what you said. Shirt sleeve to
How
shirt
would you do that though?
sleeves.
You're like sugar to whatever you were saying.
But yeah, okay.
And then you're saying sleeves to sleeves? I'm like, bro, no. Shirt sleeves. Two shirt sleeves.
Yeah. At first I thought you were saying like you were trying to say two different things, but it sounded like you were saying shirt, which you were. It's okay. Words matter. Um Anyways, bro, I'm excited, bro, because as we help people get an understanding of investing and managing their income with stewardship, I think this book definitely is imperative. And I'm glad we're going through it. I think it's cool how like 5, 10 years from now when we look back at it, how practically you and I went through this together. Shout out Imani for pitching in whenever she did. But like I just think it's significant. Everything is like really timely, bro. Because what's wild about this book club, and shout out the recording, right? It firmly started because Mikhail and I, we started noticing how when we were discussing the books that we were reading together, it forced us to apply what it is we were doing. And we also brought to light how most people never read the book. And then in addition to that, if they're reading the book, it's very vague and they're not applying what it is that they're reading because either a lack of understanding or a lack of perspective. So, like us just talking about the book and then being intentional, holding each other accountable to apply the book, allowed that to be significant. And I've always learned that your level of success will meet you at your level of personal development. So if it exceeds you and you're here, it'll meet you where you're at. Or if you're here, then your success will meet you where you're at, right? And in that regard, like what I've noticed about the book club is sheesh, bro. There's a reason why there's a 5 to 1% in the population, especially now as like AI is replacing people's ability to think and critically solve problems and to process situations and circumstances. Oh, I think it's so simple nowadays to be more valuable and outside the norm than it is to be a part of the cloth. And I'm excited, bro. I really think that when we look back at it, we're gonna see how we apply these principles. This is definitely a book that I'll be reading a multitude of times, and not just in book club, just because it's helping me remind myself of some facts that are in tune with where we're going and the things that I've put into place, but also it's helping me understand some things that I can apply even now as we prepare to bring about wealth for our families that not guarantee, but encourage sustainability long term and multiplication. So, anyways, I'm excited. Next week is chapter 7 and 8. We're wrapping up this book, brother. I'm excited. Next book we got on deck.
Bigger one.
Which is
Okay.
Huh?
I got some more.
which is
It's this book by John C. Maxwell called 360-Degree Leader. Woohoo! I've only read the
well,
intro I've only read the introduction to 360-Degree Leader, and that one's
and
going to be powerful. But it's being a leader within any organization, regardless of where you're at, because of who you are. So I'm excited about that one. Again, that one's by John C. Maxwell. I'll be throwing in kind of that same promo I did with like the audio, the link for the book, and where you can find it on TGS website. But yeah, another book is about to bite the dust, and
another one bites dust.
another one does. All right, y'all. Hope you have a great Saturday. Much love. God bless, and we'll see you next week. Peace.